Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, October 4th regular meeting of the Mason County Board of Commissioners. Welcome everybody. So glad to see a great crew here. We have the honor of having City Commissioner Kathy McDowell. Would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We also have in the audience my personal hero, Patty Kleist. Patty is the wonder kid of the North End, and it's her birthday today, so I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. Can we please have the roll call?
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Tim Sheldon.
Here as well.
Commissioner District 3, Terry Jeffries.
Here. Correspondence and organizational business. Can you please report the correspondence received by the Commission?
Sure. The Liquor and Cannabis Board sent a marijuana license application for Bomar Holdings. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Next, last week we had an opportunity to, as we do every year, to celebrate and to honor those who have served 10 years or more for the county as an employee. We have an extraordinarily longevity here to also honor who could not be here or be at the award ceremony. Carrie Schaffenauer with our Department of Public Works, would you please approach the podium? Carrie has served in our Public Works Department for the county for 35 years. That's extraordinary in any field, but
and look, I'm still here.
especially in public service, and especially in accounts payable and accounts receivable for our utilities. How long have you been in that position?
26 years.
26.
I worked in the treasurer's office for 10 years, almost 11.
Treasurer's office.
Yeah.
So, the one that takes your money, not always your best friend. But Carrie, I thank you so much, and I congratulate you for your public service of 35 years.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We also are here to we'd like to honor and recognize our own coroner, Wesley Stockwell. Wesley, would you step? Wesley has served the county in this position for 10 years. So congratulations,
Thank
Wesley,
you.
and
Thank
thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Wes has done tremendous things as a coroner. This used to be a half-time position. As we grew in population, obviously, we needed to expand the number of hours and your responsibilities. But Wes is one of those elected officials that can pinch a penny till it cries, has professionalized the work of the coroner's office, and especially in our, now I'm forgetting, the services of the autopsies.
Mm-hmm.
That's been more professionalized in a way that I think the victims' families feel more comfortable,
Yeah.
and I feel like they're really getting their services.
Couldn't have done without your support too, so.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Wes.
All right.
We're very privileged. You would not believe how many employees have 20 plus years here at the county. That's just phenomenal. And, we acknowledge as a commission that sandwiched in between two very large urban counties of Kitsap and Thurston, who have a very high tax base, are able to pay their employees so much more than we can. We struggle, we try, we work hard to try to meet those or try to get some sort of parity, but we know it's not possible. So I know that anybody that has 20 plus years is doing it because they are a true public servant, and I just thank the county employees. Next, we have a news release of the Planning Commission vacancy. Barbara Adkins with our Department of Community Services. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Yes, this is a news release for the Planning Advisory Commission vacancy. Mason County is seeking applicants from Commissioner District 2 for the Mason County Planning Advisory Commission. The Planning Advisory Commission is a 7-member citizen board appointed to advise the Board of Commissioners on policy-related amendments to the Comprehensive Plan, the Shoreline Master Program, and land use regulations. The Commission typically meets once per month on the third Monday at 6 p.m. in this room, with special meetings scheduled as necessary. Appointed commissioners normally serve a 4-year term. The term for this position will expire in October of 2020. Applications to serve on the board are being accepted until the position is filled, and should be submitted to the Mason County Commissioners, 411 North Fifth Street, Shelton, Washington, 98584. Application forms may be obtained from the Commissioner's office by calling 427-9670, extension 419, or by visiting our website at www.co.mason.wa.us.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
Please.
Madam Chair, both of us have both served on that committee, and I want to tell you, if you want to do something out of love for your community, it takes a lot of work, but there is no more impactful position from the citizen's standpoint than that position. If you have within your heart to invest the time and the effort, and only please, if you're willing to do all the work that comes with it, please step forward. Really, you can be helpful to your whole community with just this one position if you're willing to do it.
Agreed. Thank you. Next, we have our open forum for citizen input. This is an opportunity to address the commission on any items that are not on the agenda. If you would like to address the commission, please raise your hand. You'll be recognized. We ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes. We do have 4 public hearings today. Also, silence your cell phones. And we will. I will have to adhere to a 15-minute limit today on today's citizen input. We do have a very full schedule. Mr. Pastor, I saw your hand up. Please approach the podium.
I want to question you on your child labor laws with this lady that's 36 years old. 38 years old.
I agree.
She was 3 when she was hired. My name is Bob Pastor. That's P-A-S-T-O-R-E for the clerk. And I live at 5294 Grapeview Loop Road in Grapeview, Washington. Been there for 45 years. And 4 years ago, I got involved with the Port of Grapeview. I couldn't spell Port of Grapeview back then, but now I am thoroughly involved, sort of like the Planning Commission. I am here under no authority from the Commission, Port of Grapeview. I'm here on my own as a citizen to bring something forward because the chairman of the Commission is presently on a boat in the middle of the ocean somewhere and not communicating. So I have to do this. He'll be back on the 14th, and I will brief him fully on what I've accomplished. In the meantime, I am up against a bunch of deadlines with a gun to my head, and we are going to approach the Recreation Conservation District for another grant, I should say Recreation Conservation Office, for another grant. We have an opportunity that 2 pieces of property adjacent to our boat ramp in Grapeview have recently become available. The property that's adjacent to it, just on the north, has 2 homes on it, same owners. The owner has retired to assisted living in California. The trustees own it. Matter of fact, one of them lives in my town down in Newport Beach, and we've gotten together a number of times to discuss the properties. This would make 120 feet between the 2 properties of public access on saltwater in Case Inlet, and there's very little saltwater access in Case Inlet. The owners are Mr. Pittman and Mr. and Mrs. Bianchi. They have indicated that they would listen to what we have to say. Now the gun to my head is this. I do the background work for the port, okay? And in order to make the application for the grant, it's due in PRISM, that's P-R-I-S-M, PRISM, the state's database for input for grants. It is due by November 1st. By November 15th, we have to have our PowerPoint presentation together that the chairman will make to the commission. Now, I've spoken to the Conservation Office. They're very excited about this. They agree with us that there is hardly any saltwater access in Case Inlet. So what I was asking for, and I called Randy the other day, and I said, you know, if these 2 properties are worth, because they're right on the waterfront, somewhere around $600,000, the match should be $150,000. We don't have that kind of money. Okay, the port's entire budget for the year is $25,000. So we have to squeeze the ears off of Lincoln Penny to make sure that we're spending our dollar bills every day the right way. We have a market analysis being done at the present moment versus a full-blown appraisal. Market analysis will cost $250. A full-blown appraisal costs $2,000. We only need the $250 one to apply to the RCO. I've already checked that with them. We will know this week what the properties are actually worth. What I was asking Randy for was that the commission would consider, and remember, we can withdraw any of this at any time if we can't make it, but we can't do this without the match. If the match is $150,000, there's no way we can come up with it, the port. So we had to get creative. So I asked Randy if he would discuss with the commissioners if there was some way if the county could come up with 33%. And I approached the Conservation District, Mason Conservation District yesterday, talked to John Bolander, and John is very excited about the project too, and he's going to commit resources to it to decide whether or not they can commit 33%. The other 33% getting again creative. The houses on it, there's two houses. One is rented out right now. Will provide income, especially in the summertime, because the waterfront house will go for about $1,500 a week. So the port's 33%. We have to demolish the properties within 3 years, according to the RCO rules, if we get the grant. Okay? The owners of the property are willing to wait until February before selling the properties. February is the date that we make the technical presentation. I would say take it back. The actual presentation, the grading presentation to the RCO. If we're successful, we will be graded high. If we're graded high, we will know that, and that means that we will probably get money to be funded. Then we will have to know, then the owners will know that we will be able to buy the properties from them. If we can't make that deadline by February 15th, then the properties will be released for sale to the general public. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
I have a quick question. Do you have any, I understand your dock, your current boat ramp is used pretty heavily by some shellfish growers.
That's
Have
correct.
you approached the private companies for some match money?
We did that already for the boat ramp. And as you're probably familiar with, we have from the shellfish operator $70,000 in cash coming for that. That's match for that. This is a totally separate project, and it just came to our doorstep because the gentleman that owns the property has moved to assisted living in California, and the house is now empty. So the trustees, it's in the trust, would like to sell the property, but they're willing to wait because the man lived there for a long time to contribute to Grapeview if we can do it. And it's, again, it's an opportunity lost if we don't act on it, so it comes down to that.
Bob, just to let you know, I did pass on the information from Glenn Carlson to the commission yesterday.
Thank you.
Talk about it further at a...
Thank you. Yes, he's unfortunately incommunicado until about October 14th.
Go ahead.
Well, I just, thank you, Madam Chair. Bob, I want to say thank you very much for bringing this forward. We've met before and down in
Yes.
Olympia, actually talked about some things with the port. And
That's correct.
I've worked, when I saw the pictures here, I was thinking about old Virgil with his store, and we worked a long time for fuel and some of the other issues there, so I'd be happy to take a look at it. But one thing that brings to mind, though, is the room is also occupied by people from the Historical Society.
Yes.
Who've been asking us for some help, our commission for some help too. So I want to help your group. I want to help their group as well.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
We have a difficult time with our financing here and with the grant proposals that come forward, but I think there's merit in what you want to do, but I think there's also quite a good deal of merit in what the Historical Society wants to do as well. So we need to work on all the projects.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? That's it? Thank you.
Mr. Van Buskirk.
Thank you, Commissioners. Ken Van Buskirk, Northeast 61 Davis Farm Road in Belfair. After listening to your deliberations last week about the application for the Phase 2 sewer grant, I wanted to point out a couple things. It's true, it appears that mistakes have been made, but I don't want to see those mistakes compounded. And I'd ask you again to reconsider not submitting that grant at this time. The map that was used is outdated and incorrect. The comprehensive plan is being updated this year. It won't be updated again for another 10 years. And right now, the Planning Advisory Commission is looking at a proposal to possibly expand the Shelton urban growth area. If that expands, the other two urban growth areas likely would need to reduce. And I've repeatedly asked that the Belfair UGA be reduced excluding the Union River Valley. When the original Belfair boundary was drawn, there were several salmon-bearing streams, Viola, Miggy, and Irene Creek, that were not mapped or identified, nor was the critical aquifer recharge area identified. A line on the map can be redrawn, but once the sewer lines are in the ground, fostering development, it will forever change the rural character of that valley. Commissioner Jeffries, last week you stated that to accommodate growth in the urban growth areas and urban development, it means having adequate infrastructure to support growth. That's true. But I'm concerned that just providing sewer does not meet GMA's concurrency requirements for all infrastructure, particularly transportation. The county has not established level of service standards for the Old Belfair Highway nor Newkirk Road. And in my opinion, Commissioner Sheldon offered some very compelling rationale for tabling the grant application. And I'd like to see us focus on getting the bypass done before we do any more talk about the sewer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just wanted to share it. Thank you, Mr. Beckskirk. I appreciate your advocacy for the North End area. Our comprehensive plan can be updated at any point. The 10-year is the minimum. We can be looking at the urban growth area size at any point, and in fact had a discussion about that, of looking at it in 2017.
About the Belfair urban growth?
The Belfair urban growth area. The discussion, I guess I'm a little bit at odds with people's assumption that we need to size these simply for housing. That is the mandate, that you allocate your population to your different urban growth areas and areas outside those urban growth areas for population, and they should be adequately sized for that. What we also have to make sure of is they're adequately sized for commercial and industrial development. So if in fact we expand the size of the Shelton urban growth area, it does not necessarily mean we need to downsize the Belfair urban growth area. The purposes for potentially expanding the Shelton urban growth area is for larger parcel availability for industrial development. Right now, we just don't have anything larger than a 5-acre size that's available for sale, many for lease. So we had done some research to determine what does the law say about sizing for industrial development, and it's silent. So that is a policy question.
I apologize, the wrong choice of words.
Just make a comment, because I think this is a topic that everyone is interested in. Certainly, it's very timely, because the commission, two commissioners to my right, did approve the application for design money for Phase 2 of the Belfair Sewer Project. So we would be committing $750,000 of county money, and the state would put in $750,000. Now, in the legislative session 2 years ago, I found in the capital budget, and it was signed into law, $3 million for debt relief for the city of Shelton for the sewer and for Belfair, $1.5 million each, and we just accepted those funds. But I told the other two commissioners the other day, when I go back to Olympia, we'll write a new budget. And I can look again, I'll be the most senior legislator of 147 legislators. I can go back and look for funds for debt relief, again, for Belfair and for the city of Shelton. But I won't do it for Belfair if we expand that system. I'm not going to have the state of Washington subsidize developers. And I think that's what we're doing in Phase 2 of this plan. So I'm happy to help, and more than happy to help the citizens, but I think we can reduce the size of the Belfair urban growth area and save that rural character that I think the people enjoy. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to address the commission? Ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good morning. Annette McGee, representing the Mason County Historical Society. With me today is Ray Kimball. We met with you a couple weeks ago on the workshop angle, and we're really pleased to have met with you on it. We're here today only to ask you where you are in getting your appraisal of the land, and I guess where do we go from here, other than the fact that I will tell you right up front, we're working on the business plan that you asked for, which is, again, we're trying to answer all your questions along the way. We're trying to do what you want. We're cooperating with you in every which way we are. Now, have you discussed the issue? And where are we?
Our community services, support services director, Frank Pinter, to update the commission and the Historical Society. Silence your cell phones.
So I spoke last week with the firm that's doing the appraisal. They're having some difficulty getting comparables, adequate number of comparables to do the evaluation, but they're continuing to work through that. And he had not indicated when he expects to have it completed, but he did say that within the next couple of weeks at the outside that he would be able to finish the evaluation.
Next couple of weeks.
And submit it to the county. So he's still working through it. The difficulty is in the comparables that he needs to review.
Are we in the process of identifying, or at least looking at whether or not the land could be surplused?
Yes, we're also in that process as well, evaluating where the ownership lies and what the designated uses are available for that. And then we'll be presenting to the commission all of the details, probably in the coming weeks for your review.
Weeks?
Yes.
Week or weeks?
Weeks.
And then I had discussed with our deputy prosecuting attorney what the legality of the trade option we had between public works properties and current expense-owned properties. And he has not gotten back to me on that.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Commissioners, on that. I would like to make the statement, I hope that the Grapeview Port gets quicker cooperation than the Historical Society, who represents the entire county, has from the county commissioners. And I'd like to thank Commissioner Sheldon for his words, and congratulations, Tim, on being the longest representative over in the legislature. We're having worked with the legislature for the past 50 years. I know how much weight that carries. When you're a senior legislator, it carries a lot of weight. Thank you, Commissioners. We'll be back.
Is there anybody else that would like to address the commission this night?
I'm Bonnie Needham from Allen. I'm the president of the North Bay Historic Society. I just wanted to share some good news. You know, we're working on restoring the Sergeant Oyster building and turning it into a museum there on the waterfront, and we're very close to submitting our applications for our final permit, or for our shoreline permits. But I just want to tell you what kind of support we're getting. Restoring a building like that is a lot. We're looking like $500,000 to move it and everything. And as of today, we have someone who has volunteered to do all of the concrete work, someone who has volunteered to remove all of the asbestos siding and get rid of it. We have Mitchell Lumber on board now helping us with the lumber that we need. And we have a person that has volunteered to totally replace or restore all of the windows. We have a lady who is a historian from Georgetown University who has volunteered to do all of the documentation and cataloging and cleaning up of all of the artifacts and helping set up the museum. She's very excited about that. And we have a marine biologist who's donating all of his time. And an architect and engineer type guy that is drawing all of our plans up and stuff for the permits. And then we just have volunteers that are just plain helping in all of the other roles, and others that I can't even remember. But that is, to me, just a major, major, major thing to be able to see the community come together like that. And of course, the Port of Allen is there. They're kind of in the background because the building belongs to them, but they're not doing anything towards the restoration. That's been turned over to us. But I thank you guys for your support and for the videos that we got. The historic videos were amazing. They were really, really good. And they're going to be part of the final museum exhibit. So thank you guys for your support, and I just wanted to bring everybody up to date and say, yeah, we're getting there, and the support has been just awesome.
Congratulations. I know you've all been working hard.
It's going to happen.
Anybody else that would like to address the commission at this time? Hearing none, we'll move to item number 6, the adoption of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the agenda as presented today.
Second?
It's moved and second to adopt the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. We have no minutes to approve, so we'll move on to item number 8. This is our action agenda. We have briefed these items in previous weeks in our Monday morning briefings and had discussed, and at this point, at that point, they were approved to be put on this agenda and potentially approved with one vote, one motion and one vote. What we will do is read through each of the 16 items on the agenda and give an opportunity for anybody in the audience or the commission to ask any questions. Also, you have the opportunity in the audience and among the commission to ask any of the items be removed for separate vote and testimony. I would like to read the first 5 items. Commissioner Netherland, if you would read items 8.6 through 8.11, and Commissioner Sheldon 8.12 through 8.16. Item 8.1, approval of the Washington Early Learning Fund doing business as Thrive Washington Independent Contractor Agreement for the Nurse Family Partnership Program. This is a renewal grant agreement for $100,000 from July 1, 2016 through June 30, 2017. 8.2, approval of the 2016 subcontract with Capital Region ESD 113, that's Educational Service District, to provide substance abuse prevention services in our schools as part of our Department of Social and Health Services Division of Behavioral Health Services grant deliverables in an amount not to exceed $20,000. 8.3, approval of the Veterans Assistance Fund applications for utilities totaling $152 as recommended by the Veterans Service Office. 8.4, approval for the board to authorize the water and wastewater manager job classification and allow Human Resources to proceed with the process needed to amend the non-union salary range alignment table and authorize Public Works to amend to advertise, interview, and hire to fill the position. 8.5, approval of the purchase and rehabilitation contract between Mason County and Homes First for veterans shelter and permanent supportive housing for low-income and/or homeless veterans. The cost will be $100,000, provided by revenue generated from the document recording fees as allowed per engrossed Second Substitute House Bill 2163 and Substitute House Bill 2060.
Madam Chair, item 8.6 reads, approval for the chair to sign a 3-year lease for the Mason County Sheriff's Office substation located in Belfair Landing Complex. The rent, including expenses, shall remain the same as the previous lease, and the only additional cost to the county will be an additional $349 per month for electricity. Item number 8.7, approval of the resolution establishing an interfund loan from ER&R Equipment Rental Revolving to current expense for the purchase of handheld radios at a cost of $93,192 and 16 new vehicles at an estimated cost of $750,000 purchased by the Mason County Sheriff's Office in 2016. The interfund loan will be repaid in 2017, 18, and 19 through the current expense budget process. Item number 8.8, approval of the interlocal agreement between Mason County and Thurston County per RCW 71.20.110 to provide local county funding for developmentally disabilities program service in Mason and Thurston counties. Item number 8.9, approval of the memorandum of understanding between Mason County and the Woodworkers Local Lodge W38 IAM Corrections and Support Staff Collective Bargaining Unit. Item number 8.10, approval of the January 2016 through December 2018 Collective Bargaining Agreement, CBA, for the Woodworkers Local Lodge W38 IAM representing Mason County Corrections and Support Staff. Item number 8.11, approval of the resolution establishing the allocation of millage and liquor taxes funding to the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization from April 1st, 2016 until terminated.
Madam Chair, 8.12, approval of warrants, claims clearing fund, warrant numbers 8042918 through 8043167 in the amount of $1,595,989.01. Direct deposit fund, warrant numbers 34771 through 35162 in the amount of $707,464.11. Salary clearing fund, warrant numbers 700-2197 through 700-2239 in the amount of $528,144.17, for a total of $2,831,597.29. Our claims clearing year-to-date total is $24,862,083.82. Our direct deposit year-to-date total, $10,163,664.30. And salary clearing year-to-date total, $10,628,872.72. 8.13, approval of the interagency agreement, IAA 17477, between the State of Washington Administrative Office of the Courts and Mason County Juvenile Court Services for court-appointed special advocates, CASA, programs in the amount of $60,214. 8.14, approval of the interagency agreement, IAA 17431, between the State of Washington Administrative Office of the Courts and Mason County Juvenile Court Services for BECA bill programs and services in the amount of $74,168. The services will be utilized to provide truancy, at-risk youth, and children in need of services programs per Revised Code of Washington 13.32A. 8.15, approval of the contract for professional services between Mason County and Strengthening Foundations Counseling, LLC, to continue functional family therapy services with probation, youth, and families. And finally, 8.16, approval to voice no objection to a special occasion license for the North Bay Historical Society for an event to be held on October 8, 2016 in Allen, Washington, and to have the chair sign the application.
Having read all those, is there anybody in the audience that has any questions on any of the items just read? Commissioners, any questions?
I have a question about 8.7. This is an interfund. No other questions from anyone in the audience?
I didn't see any hands raised.
8.7. So maybe Frank could help me with it. And the I don't see the treasurer here, but I think we went through this issue for quite a while on the source of the funding for this.
Correct.
Right. So we started with an interest rate that was, or a discussion about the applicability of an interfund loan for these purchases, and what was the result?
The applicability, the interfund loan can be funded or paid for through the sheriff's office budget, assuming the commission supplies the sheriff's office funding to pay the interfund loan dollars. An alternative was to have the current expense non-departmental pay the funding or the cost of the interfund loan on an annual basis for a 3-year period, and that's what this proposal is, or this resolution. It's to have the current expense non-departmental pay the 50% of the cost of the vehicles and the radios for a 3-year period starting 2017, 18, and 19. There's also a modification. After balancing the payments and the dollars for the purchase of the vehicle, it was realized that there was a $37,000 reduction in the total cost because of a correction that was made, an adjustment that was made through the sheriff's office. They picked up an additional $37,000 in the purchase of these vehicles. So the overall payment is going to be reduced by $37,000. So the exact amount of the principal is $431,181.52, and the annual interest is at 1.52%.
Any other questions?
Well, I guess the question is, so we don't have the money to buy them outright?
They would require funding out of the ending fund balance. And the ending fund balance has restrictions in regards to the amount of ending fund balance that is prudent in maintaining for best practices.
Operational reserve.
So we're keeping our operational reserve and pushing the purchase of these out for 3 years.
Correct.
Commissioners, I would propose that we pull item 8.7 for a separate vote, in that the numbers are different than the motion that would have been made.
That'd be good.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on any of the items just read?
I have just a real quick question. Can you explain what on number 8.16, no objections means?
That the county commission concurs that there is no reason not to give a special occasion liquor license to the North Bay Historical Society. Generally, that there hasn't been any problems in the past of over-serving or anything like that, and so there's no objection that they would be given.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commission?
Madam Chair, I move for the approval of the action agenda items 8.1 through 8.16, removing item number 8.7 for a separate vote.
I'll second the motion, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and seconded to approve items 8.1 through 8.6 with the exception of item 8.7 on today's action agenda. Is there any further discussion?
Comment.
Please.
Great job to our staff on those agreements with the local unions. In doing this, there's been a great protection of the jobs at the jails in order to make sure that they are funded enough so that we don't lose as many, and now that we can recruit a lot better. We were woefully behind on being able to recruit because of the amount of pay that we had with our past contracts.
I agree.
Thank you.
We increased through a less than, kind of a interesting process, but did increase the entry pay, which was where we had our most difficulty in recruiting. And I also, my hat's off to management and to the union team for coming to agreement before we got into arbitration.
I'd make a comment as well, Madam Chair. A normal organization that has, like, employees, the number we have, 350, would have one union. We have 11 or 12, I forget. 12?
11.
11.
A 12th coming on board.
12 coming out. So we have 12 bargaining units. So a normal business organization deals with one union, maybe two. So.
I wanted to
Thanks.
make, sorry.
I just want to say thank
That's your
the staff for their hard work. It's one of the hardest things because I believe, and we had a proposal here from the Freedom Foundation in Olympia that we start negotiating in public. Other places are doing it. I think it would be a good change for us to negotiate in public with this amount of bargaining units. I think the public would be very interested in how it's done and probably have some input. So thank you for allowing me to state my opinion.
I'd like to give an opportunity for discussion on these items because a lot of work goes behind each and every one of these items that we pass in one motion. I did want to point out that item 8.8 and 8.11 are going back and looking at, we had legacy agreements with Thurston County to provide all of the mental health and developmentally disabled services. And basically, Mason County residents, you pay a property tax that specifically is mandated by law and is mandated to provide developmentally disabled services and mental health and substance abuse services. Over the years, Mason County has just ceded any kind of involvement in how are those monies used and just sent them on to Thurston County without really any report back of what they're doing with that money. These interlocal agreements do a couple things, but the most important thing that they do is they do require some reporting back to the Mason County Commission about what types of services are being provided with Mason County tax dollars. And so we appreciate being able to take care of these legacy items and come back and look and say, where are we doing, is business as usual the same, still what we want to be doing? As well as we had to separate the two to this new behavioral health organization, which was not in existence when we first had these agreements. So if there's no more comment or discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. Item 8.7. Frank Pinter, could you please come present this item?
This is a resolution to establish an interfund loan between the county and ER&R to pay for the purchase of 16 vehicles for the sheriff's office, as well as some radios. The principal amount of the loan is for $431,181.52. The interest rate is 1.52, and the term is for 3 years with a debt payment due on April 1st of 17 and successive April 1st of 18 and 2019. The installments are on a 3-year basis. The total purchase price with principal and interest is $444,355.35.
With the interest.
With interest.
But the principal amount is $431,181.52.
Correct.
As in the corrected resolution.
Correct.
Any questions for Frank?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you.
Please.
Frank, we've never borrowed money before to make these kinds of purchases, have we?
Actually, no, we have.
Or what-
We did in, I think it was 2006 or 7 when we purchased vehicles for the sheriff's traffic policing.
Was it an interfund loan?
It was an interfund loan between ER&R and the sheriff's office at that time.
3 years?
3-year payments.
Okay.
It's almost the same amount. It was about $400,000, if I recall correctly.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Madam Chair, the numbers being changed for our documentation, but the motion, are there any numbers that have changed in that?
Not in the motion itself.
So the motion remains the same.
The handheld radio cost motion is different.
93,192 is what we have. for
The resolution says 56,181.
And that is correct.
So the motion does need to be changed.
So we need to change the motion.
To read 56,181.52.
And the estimated cost of the vehicles is different as well, isn't it?
56,181.
52, and the 50% component of the 750 is 375,000.
But the
And-
total
and-
estimated cost is still around 750.
Right, but I think what we need to clarify is that it was only half of the cost that is
Correct.
that is being borrowed at $375,000. This motion is not as transparent as it could be.
Correct.
I would change the $750,000 to $375,000.
And I would change it to read the estimated cost of half of the purchase of the
Yeah, I was
vehicles
going to say,
is 375,000.
because that's still accurate, the 750.
I understand, but it's not a good number to have in a motion when we're talking about
Half?
the loan.
Of the cost, 375,000?
Correct.
You want me to take a stab at this? Sure.
If there are no further questions, Any questions from the audience?
Madam Chair, I move for the approval of resolution establishing interfund loan from ER&R Equipment Rental and Revolving to current expense for the purchase of handheld radios at a cost of $56,181.52 and 16 new vehicles at an estimated half the cost of at $375,000 purchased by the Mason County Sheriff's Office in 2016. The interfund loan will be repaid 2017, 2018, 2019 through the current expense budget process.
Is there a second? I will second that motion. It's moved and seconded to approve the resolution establishing an interfund loan from ER&R Equipment Rental and Revolving Fund to current expense for the purchase of handheld radios at a cost of $56,181.52 and half the cost of 16 new vehicles at an estimated cost of $375,000 purchased by the Mason County Sheriff's Office in 2016. The interfund loan will be repaid in 2017, 18, and 19 through the current expense budget process. Is there any further discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can understand how we may have used an interfund loan during a recession. And this is my last term as county commissioner. I've only got a couple months left, so I'm just not going to vote for this item. It's not a reflection on, certainly not on the sheriff's office. We do need that equipment, but I don't want to encumber our next commission with that debt. I think we should have paid for it, and paid cash, and adjusted our budget to do that. But I understand why this won't pass. So thank you.
Thank you. I would like to share that the Sheriff's Office replenishment of vehicles had to be stalled during the recession, and that precipitated the need to purchase a large amount this year, and we continue to try to replenish their rolling stock to keep them in best practices of the number of miles, et cetera. And so this larger purchase in 1 year, I believe, necessitated a financing, a 3-year financing agreement in order to also do the other things that needed to be paid for out of our ending fund balance. There are quite a few, coming out of the recession, we've had quite a few requests to backfill where people where departments and offices had cuts. And so I think financing, especially such large purchases, is needed so that we can maintain a reserve, operating reserve in our ending fund balance and be able to fund unanticipated expenses. I think it was almost $1 million of unanticipated expenses that was requested just in our last budget supplemental, and I anticipate more coming. And so as much as I would love to just pay it off at one time, there are other unanticipated expenses that we have to be prepared for.
Madam Chair, two clarifications. One, the vehicles had already been delivered. This has not been a delay in the delivery of the vehicles. They were delivered immediately. This is just on how the structure of the payment will be. And number two, I want to clarify, we're not getting a loan with the bank. This is an interfund loan between interagency here. The interest goes to Mason County, not to some other entity or some other organization. The 1.5% is paid to Mason County. So
I also want to point out that we did respond to the sheriff's request that this repayment not be made out of his own budget, that it be made out of the ending fund or the current expense budget, and we did concur and did as he requested. So if there's no further discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
No.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Madam Chair, before we move on to the other, I have a feeling that we have a gentleman sitting here for introduction, and it would sure be nice if he was introduced before everybody leaves.
I would like to have that as well.
Yeah. After we do our hearings, you'll find there'll be only 1 or 2 people here to introduce you to.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Commission. And one quick comment. The 3 things that were just approved on the consent agenda, they have been a years-long discussions and battles, but I appreciate what has happened. That North End precinct lease, huge to that community and our ability to patrol and police operations up there. The collective bargaining agreement, that is, well, we've briefed I don't know how many times, but the ability
for all agencies to attract, train, retain is huge right now, and every agency, and this man will tell you, is in absolute competition for the limited people that we can find to run jails. And the car issue, it started almost about this time last year, this discussion, and we are getting resolution, and I think it's the right thing to do, because this is about maintaining the industry standards. In your comments, Madam Chair, about during the recession, many people don't understand that we took cars that were supposed to be in the 120 to 150 miles, and they were going out to 180, 190, and 200,000, which is completely outside of compliance. And the work with the unions, the work with the board, the work with management to get those bubbles fixed, and we still have one or two to address. They're smaller, but they're still there. I appreciate the work. So with that, I'd like to introduce Chief Kevin Hansen. He's from the Lewis County Jail, 25 years. He's gone through the entire ranks there, and we are very pleased to have him on board working through the fun that will be.
Well, thank you, Commissioners. I'm truly honored to come to work here at Mason County. Sheriff Salisbury and Under Sheriff Barrett are just absolutely outstanding people to work for, and I can't wait to bring my services and my expertise here. I have been through jail construction projects and processes. I'm on the mental health board for Cascade Mental Health down in Lewis County. I'm the treasurer actually of that board, so I bring some experience here with dealing with mentally ill. So I hope to be able to bring that here and help you guys. I look forward to working with you all. As I make my rounds and get to meet the elected officials and all the key players in Mason County, I'm really looking forward to becoming part of this and helping you guys to the next stage of where we need to go. So, I appreciate the opportunity to say hi, and thank you very much.
I read also that you're also up there when it comes to alternate sentencing and very up on all that. And I see that Lewis County was very sad to see you go, because I read the article.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so welcome.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us, and we're really going to enjoy working with you.
Yeah, I can't wait to do good things here. It's going to be exciting, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
So, Chief Hansen, I also echo the welcome, and I'm extremely excited to hear that you are involved in mental health services. And as you may or may not be aware, we are expanding our ability to be able to quit using our jails as our mental institutions here in Mason County. And so I really look forward to working with you and with the behavioral health organization so that we can make some great strides. I watch Thurston County. I don't know if you've been watching what they've been doing on their restorative justice initiatives, and I hope that we can maybe work together to echo some of those words.
We'll make stuff happen here, I promise.
Because I've shared many times that I think that when somebody leaves our jails, there are oftentimes two people that could potentially be there to greet them. Their drug dealer or their case manager, and I want it to be the case manager.
So do we. And we want to have a process in place so that the first stop isn't jail. Because that's not where they belong. They don't belong in jail. So,
well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I hope you
Appreciate
find it
Thanks.
comfortable here.
Yeah, I will. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Under Sheriff Barrett. Appreciate that. We do have some public hearings in front of us, and so we will go right into our public hearings. I should probably go in the order that they are here, just in case my book is not in the right order. Our first hearing is a public hearing to consider an ordinance changing the speed limit on Old Belfair Highway from 45 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour from milepost 0.00 to north of Northeast McKnight Road, approximate milepost .60. And we have Loretta Swanson, it looks like, and Dave Smith to present the item.
A little more height there.
For the record, Dave Smith, Public Works. Thank you, Commissioners. We received a request to look at the speed limit on Old Belfair Highway in the vicinity of the urban growth area, which is roughly milepost 0.00, which is down here at the beginning of the state highway, out to about 1.1, as I say, 1.1, to actually at 1.6. So we did a traffic study. We took vehicle volumes and speeds in the vicinity of the fire station at about 0.6, and we looked at the traffic accidents that had occurred over the last 7 or 8 years, and looked at the driveways and the spacings, typically things you would look at in a traffic study. And we made a recommendation to lower the speed limit from 45 to 35 from milepost 0 out to just beyond Northeast McKnight Road. And that traffic study was presented to you for your review, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
I have no questions. Are there any questions from the audience?
Yes. Mr. Smith, right?
Yes.
In your cover sheet here, it says that Public Works will continue to monitor the remainder of the highway. How are you planning to do that?
Probably with traffic counts, looking at volumes and speeds, and monitor the number and the kinds and types of driveways that are and access points that are being approved, whether residential, commercial.
You're talking about beyond McKnight Road, out to the urban growth.
Correct.
boundary?
Yes.
Thank you.
Where would the first sign go that says, approaching a speed reduction? The first 35 sign that says,
Actually,
usually you have two. You have the 35 and you have the first one that says approaching.
coming in this direction, it would be speed zone ahead, right, at just beyond .6, and then as you come into milepost .6, it would be posted at 35 for southbound, and then as you turn onto Old Belfair Highway, it would be posted 35, and it would be posted 35 before you get to McKnight, and then so it would be right in that vicinity.
Now, I've had several phone calls from people that live out there. Some people don't want any change at all, of course, but then I've had some phone calls of people requesting it to go out to the curve up there by Union River. Newkirk. Yeah, but they were actually requesting right at the beginning of the straightaway there.
So right about 1.10?
By the bridge.
1.2 is...
Yes, just past the bridge on the straightaway. So I see 1.2 or 1.10. Have you done any studies on that at all to see what difference and what kind of impact that would have?
Actually, we pulled the accidents for this whole area here up to, I think, .6, and there didn't seem to be an inordinate number of accidents associated.
Did not or did?
I say we pulled the accidents.
It did not or did have an inordinate number?
There was no inordinate.
No.
So, in other words, we didn't see a series of crashes that would be associated with, higher speed limits. So, and we also looked at the number and types of approaches in this area, and typically those would be associated with crashes where you have people getting off and on, especially with passenger vehicles and truck traffic. So that's why we didn't recommend beyond .6. So there would, at this point, until the land actually starts to develop out, we would, and we get more approaches in there, we would stop it at .6, but it would certainly be up to you.
What about this? 'Cause like I said, that's where a lot of the requests have come. But what about just making that a no passing zone, because you're coming up on a 35 anyway? Apparently, that's where the dangers come, is because that straightaway, people are passing right there. They hit it, they see the opening, and it's allowed, so they do a lot of passing there, and that's where the dangers come in. Would we be able? Is there a consideration of maybe making that into a no passing zone?
Typically, a no passing zone is a function of the curvature of the roadway.
Mm-hmm.
So if the geometrics would allow for that, then we would recommend the no passing. But we wouldn't stripe it as typically no passing to, curb people from passing if there's plenty of visibility. And that's per the MUTCD.
What about with the rate reduction, though? It's coming up on a rate reduction.
Right. We would do any corresponding warning signs that are associated with reduced speed limit. Those would go as well, and that would have to be somebody would have to go out and do a study on where those warning signs would go. It may be that it could turn out to be that, but typically if you're lowering the speed limit, probably not. If you were raising it, it'd be more inclined to have a no passing zone, but it would have to be looked at.
If you were raising it, you'd have a no passing zone?
Yeah, because you have if you're actually speeding faster than.
No, I'm talking about coming back the other direction.
So coming this direction?
Yeah, going down like that. They're passing after they come out of that curve.
So right up in this area here?
Right there, they're passing, they're pulling out and they're passing there. Does it make sense to have a passing lane coming down on a 10-mile-per-hour speed reduction?
Well, like I say, we would have to look at, basically we use an accelerator, a way to measure it through what we call a ball bank indicator. And then we would re-ball bank all those curves, and then based on that, we would set the no passing zones and all the warning signs, curves, and turn signs. So that's typically how we do it, but we could certainly look at that.
I think that might be a happy medium for those folks that are there to be able to, give a little more safety into the urban growth area right there where they're at, because there's a lot of concern about that, and still be able to keep that speed reduction just into the same zone we're looking at.
I have a question, Mr. Watson.
Mr. Smith, my name is Conley Watson. I just have I noticed on the news, is it a statewide thing that in Seattle, they're lowering the speed limit, and I see you're lowering the speed limit. Is that a statewide movement to lower the speed limits?
No, sir, it's not.
I have no problem with it. I just happened to notice the correlation between Seattle and some of the different speed limits going down, which is fine.
Yeah, I would say that Seattle is considering lowering their speed limits for a little bit different reason, for their city streets.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Smith? Thank you. We'll open this hearing for public testimony. Is there anybody who would like to testify on what's before the commission? Mr. Van Buskirk.
Thank you, Commissioners. My address is Northeast 61 Davis Farm Road in Belfair. I front the old Belfair Highway from .40 to .20. In May of this year, there was a consultant that Public Works hired to update their update to the comprehensive plan, and she came to Belfair and had a public meeting. There was 2 or 3 people from the public that came, so I was able to talk to her at length about the Belfair urban growth area. And she was quite surprised to hear that the speed limit on an urban growth road was 45 miles an hour. So I'm happy to see that this is being looked at. One thing that I wanted to point out on the map that was provided in the briefing materials, it's true that that's a straight stretch of road there, but there's 2 substantial dips in the road that limit sight vision. One is right here at .20, and I have seen people pass.
At .20?
Yes, from .20 to .40, there's a substantial dip in the road. That's where Irene Creek crosses the old Belfair Highway. And the other dip is up just beyond, very close to the Belfair Valley Nursery where the marijuana facility is operating. The map that was provided here has the urban growth boundary correctly identified. However, the streams are in the wrong place on the map that was in the briefing materials. So in fact, Irene Creek wasn't even identified on on the briefing materials. So what I wanted to point out was if you do adopt this, you might want to change the resolution. The fourth whereas says that Mason County Public Works has conducted an engineering and traffic investigation on Pickering Road. It should read Old Belfair Highway.
Thank you for noticing that.
And the other thing I wanted to point out that I jokingly, when I read some of these maximum speeds and counts, I said maybe instead of hoses we should have put out spike strips. One of the maximum speeds northbound was 70 miles an hour going this way, and one of the maximum speeds southbound was 90 miles an hour. So the only other comment I wanted to make was I think the truck traffic, and Mr. Smith says that it was low, but I'm pretty certain what happened. I live right across the road from where those strips were installed, and as soon as the truck drivers saw those strips, they used an alternate route. They went back through Gorst and came out the Old Belfair Highway that way. So there's two gravel pits down the Old Belfair Highway further out this direction. You can see one of them right here. Peninsula's gravel pit. And as soon as they saw those strips, I think they elected to run the other direction. There is quite an amount of truck traffic. So I appreciate you considering that, and I personally would like to see the speed limit lowered all the way out to the, if the Union River Valley does stay in the urban growth area, I'd like to see the speed limit lowered all the way to, I can't remember the name of that drive, it's at 1.20, it's on the east side of the Union River. Thanks very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to testify? You can always testify in support. Thank you. I think you're the reason we're here.
Ken, I think, spearheaded this thing. My name is Patty Kleist. I'm the Executive Director of the Hub Center for Seniors in Belfair, on the Old Belfair Highway. And just in support of the speed reduction, you now have a quite active senior center about, I don't know, 5 driveways in from the intersection of Old Belfair Highway. And traffic is often slower than normal incoming and outcoming out of that. I have the privilege of actually watching traffic coming in and out of my office window. And so I definitely think that for safety, both for the folks coming to my facility and for the folks on the highway, that a reduced speed limit would be indicated. Even greater over the studies that were done by Mr. Smith in previous years, the Hub is a fairly new. So anyhow, I support it, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to testify? Hearing none, I will close public testimony and enter into commissioner deliberation.
Madam Chair, I'm highly in favor of this. I think it's absolutely needed. As we've had discussions about whether or not the urban growth area should or should not be reduced. I do hope that you will consider, though, changing that passing zone also at least. If you think about it, and you look at the speeds, the high speeds, how much you want to bet some of those aren't passing? You know, when you're speeding up to get past the other cars. Now coming out of it, going north, you're behind going 35 miles per hour, you're impatient, you're going to shoot out and you're going to increase the speed for that little bit of straightaway as you're going up. Coming down, you're going to try and do a pass, and as you come into a 35 mile per hour zone and have to hit the brakes. It just seems more realistic for safety for everybody, just to at least make it so it's no passing for that area of the highway past the .6 mark. Up to the point, well, you're not going to have it in the curve anyway, so 0.10. I think that would increase the safety for everybody. They'd be able to still be able to maintain their speed, but at the same time, add a lot of safety for those people that are living off of that road right there.
Commissioner?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I think it is a safety issue. I'm going to vote for it. As we look towards the future, though, I think that as the construction winds down on Belfair widening, on Highway 3 and the bypass is built, I think we'll obviously have to take another look at it, but we may see a reduction in some of the traffic volume on Old Belfair Highway. So I'm glad that we're going to look at it again, and I think that rural area deserves a good, safe roadway.
Thank you. I think that we need to, I think speed limits have a couple different purposes, and one of them is also to alert you that you're coming into a different type of an area, and this is, I think, necessary not only for safety, but just to acknowledge we are now moving into an urban area. You're coming from some fairly rural topography or very rural area into what will be our commercial hub of the North End. And I think that the speed limit drop will acknowledge that. I probably would concur with what Mr. Van Buskirk had heard, that it's surprising to even think we have 45 miles an hour in an urban area. But at this point, I think dropping it from 0.60 into the town is sufficient as we, again, take another look at, does the urban growth area need to be resized? So I'm in favor of this. I would concur that maybe we take a look at the passing piece and acknowledge this is in our urban growth area. So regardless of what we normally do in an urban or in an arterial, understand that this is an urban arterial here.
I would hope we maybe consider doing it right now into this action. The reason why is we can fix their safety issue at the same time as safety issue for the fire department. And as something that Mr. Van Buskirk mentioned, there is another dip down there that makes it hard for people to see as they're coming in and out of those roads, and that's why the passing occurs more as well. So I'd like to be able to include it into the motion, or hopefully that you would both consider that. And I'll make a motion that you can tell me if you like it or not.
Well, I would need to, one of the things, when we do motions on the fly, you do sometimes have the danger of unintended consequences, and I just in conversation here, I'm not comfortable with doing that right here without.
So would we need another hearing if we were to try and do the no passing zone for that area?
I think that would basically be something that we could handle
Internally?
as part of our
Okay.
HRD contract, but I'd really like to talk about it more in briefing if you don't mind.
Okay.
So if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the speed limit changes on Old Belfair Highway and execute the update speed limit ordinance for the entirety of Old Belfair Highway.
I'll second the motion, Madam Chair.
May I ask for a friendly amendment to revise the ordinance that we're considering passing to state in the 1, 2, 3, 4th whereas to change Pickering Road to Old Belfair Highway?
And to change the fourth whereas from Pickering Road to Old Belfair Highway under the ordinance itself.
I'll second that as well.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the speed limit changes on Old Belfair Highway and execute the updated and revised speed limit ordinance changing Pickering Road to Old Belfair Highway for the entirety of Old Belfair Highway. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. That takes us to our next item, which is our speed limit change on Agate Road. Let's check the resolution on that one. Oh, that's right.
For the record, Dave Smith, Public Works. Thank you, Commissioners. The speed limits on Agate Road are 35 in one direction and 45 in another, and this resolution would correct that so that it would be 35 in both directions for 1 mile on Agate Road. And typically we do that because it's easier for the Sheriff's Department to enforce the speed limits. And so that was why it was presented to the board. And right here is here's the state highway, and it's as you come up the hill southbound, it's 45 past the school right here, and it's 35 at roughly milepost 1 in the other direction northbound, and we're just making that correction.
Any questions from the audience? Any question from the commission? Okay, I'll open, thank you, Dave. I'll open the floor for testimony. Does anybody like to testify on this matter? I will close public testimony. Commissioner deliberations.
I appreciate Dave and the staff taking a look at this. It makes sense to have it the same on both directions, so I would hope we pass the resolution.
Is there a motion?
I will make that motion, that the board approve the speed limit change on Agate Road and execute the updated speed limit ordinance for the entirety of Agate Road.
A second?
It's moved and seconded to approve the speed limit change on Agate Road and execute the updated speed limit ordinance for the entirety of Agate Road. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. Thank you. Our next item for public hearing, according to my book, is our 2017 Annual Road Construction Program. Melissa McFadden, our County Road Engineer.
Good morning, Commissioners. Melissa McFadden, Mason County Public Works. So we'll have 2 hearings. One will be regarding the annual construction program, which is work that we plan to do in 2017, and the other will be our 6-year TIP. So I don't want to, I tried to keep those 2 separate.
Yeah, correct. Is a
Transportation Improvement Program.
Thank you.
So it's a 6-year document. Right now, we're talking about a 1-year document. So as background, WAC 136-16010, so state statute requires that the county engineer submit a recommended annual road program to the Board of County Commissioners. The plan must be adopted prior to the budget. So the plan that we've submitted is based on the preliminary budget for 2017. So what we submitted to you and we'll be discussing tomorrow, I think. So this is a planning document. It contains the best information that we have at the moment. So obviously, always subject to change. This document is one that we submit to the County Road Administration Board, or CRAB, in order to be consistent with the practices of most other counties and to be as transparent as possible. We've opted to use the form for the annual construction program that's adopted by the board as the same form that CRAB uses. So you'll note that the format changed a little bit. CRAB has gone ahead and made all these forms web-based now. So I'm not going to say that I love the new format better than the old format, but it's based on what we're submitting to CRAB. So basically what everyone's looking at is exactly the same document that we're submitting. So really briefly, some highlights from the 2017 annual construction program are, so one thing that our commissioners and our Transportation Improvement Program Citizen Advisory Panel, TIPCAP, one thing that we've been talking about a lot is the future of Mason County. So the board and the Citizen Advisory Panel identified some projects on our annual construction program to begin planning for connections to the Belfair Bypass, repairs or alternatives to Trails Road, and also access and circulation in the Allen area. So that's something new that you're going to see on our annual construction program, are some planning projects. The things that you see every year, pavement preservation. So we plan to preserve our system with nearly 7 miles of overlay in 2017. We used our payment management system to spend the dollars in the best possible way that we know how. Safety-wise, we're using some countywide safety grant money to perform clear zone and guardrail work at several locations. So those funds typically don't require any match or a minimal amount of match from federal highways. We've got some safety and preservation improvements projects planned at Coquitlam and Matlock Brady Road, and I think you've seen those for several years on the plan. Multimodal transportation, so we have some sidewalk improvements planned along Old Belfair Highway. So that's an exciting project. Something that I really like about the annual construction program that I try to point out every year is the way that the document tallies up county road funds and outside grant funds at the bottom. So at the bottom of the document, it shows how we're leveraging our county road funds with grant funds. It can vary really widely from year to year based on what projects we have going on and what grant funding sources are available. For 2017, you'll note that we're really close to 1-to-1. So basically, we're receiving $1 in outside funding for every dollar spent in county road funds on our system. So I guess if there are any questions, I will take them now.
So you have budgeted, where is it? Trails road repairs of $715,000. Can you be specific about what type of repairs?
Yeah, Commissioner. So we've been working with a geotechnical firm who's doing some investigation now. And one thing that they talked with us about is using a lightweight fill. So we can remove a portion of material along Trails Road, put in lightweight fill material that is designed and intended to stop the movement of the roadway or to slow it way down. So we've done a good job of keeping that roadway kind of limping it along year after year and fixing the movement as it happens. This project would be intended to slow that to nil. And like I say, we're in the investigation phase right now. So if as we work with our geotech, they say, you know what, you're not going to get really the result that you're seeking, then obviously we won't move forward with the project and spend the money. But if we think it's something that will really help us to keep that road in operation for as long as possible, then we'll come back and talk with you about it more.
So you don't know how long would this last type of a guarantee?
Correct. Well, I mean, in any case, yeah, it's a sort of an active hillside, but our geotech was fairly confident that we could keep the road in service for many more years by looking at this type of project. So again, though, they're doing some investigation right now. They're drilling.
I guess I need to know the many is a relative term in road language, 10, 20, 30 years?
I believe that when we were first talking about it, it was on the order of 25 or more years that this would help to slow it to, because basically what we're seeing right now is an inch or two of movement a year. So we would see that over a much longer period of time. But again, until we've got sort of all the data in and have worked through the options and design, it's really difficult to say whether we'll move forward with this project or not.
I just want quickly. So you are assuming that we could do design and construction in 1 year on this?
Yes, they are working currently on investigative work to prepare a design.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's just a guess, though, because one catastrophic water event can change all that quickly on that hill.
Absolutely.
But relieving the weight on a slide is definitely a step forward with trying to keep it from sliding as quickly as it's been going every year.
And I think that's the reason, too, for the parallel projects, both TIPCAP and commissioners identified, that's a really heavily traveled roadway, so we also need to be looking at alternatives. So we're doing that concurrently. If we have a catastrophic failure, if we don't find that we're going to be able to keep that road in service for a long period of time, we're also working to identify an alternate.
I understand it's a 20-minute detour from those that live right around it when they have to go around.
From Mason Benson.
Well, I know on this subject, it's very difficult to predict the future on a sinking roadway. And former Secretary of Transportation Morrison commented to me one time, we both travel Highway 18 quite a bit. There's a place on Highway 18 where the asphalt is 18 feet deep. They've added so much asphalt to that spot, but there's no other route, so you keep adding asphalt. So
And that's what we want to
I
prevent,
appreciate what you're up against as an engineer.
We spoke yesterday in our briefing about the Homer Adams culvert.
Correct.
And maybe having an alternate
Yeah.
route available and continue to watch that culvert. But it's on this. So if we were to modify the annual construction program, either today or when we pass the program, would we be able, So we would need to reallocate the $450,000 of county money, is that correct?
Yeah, so, well, Commissioner, again, this is the planning document, so if we make the decision as part of the budget process to not move forward with Homer Adams Road, that we can identify an alternate route and we can provide that to our citizens, we don't have to make revisions to the annual construction program. If you want to take it off right now, we can absolutely do that. I would like to at some point see it further on down the line in our 6-year program, but I guess we have some options on that. If we leave it on here and then we make some different decisions as part of the budget process, it's not really going to impact.
It does in a way in that if somebody wanted to find out what are the annual projects, they would look at this document.
Sure.
And so I'd like this document to be accurate,
Okay.
because I'll be honest with you,
Yeah.
the average citizen would probably not want to even look at our budget, given how complicated it's displayed out. And so,
Yeah, we
my
can remove
preference-
that from the annual construction program as part of your movement, your motion today, and move forward from there.
And we did not, we don't have our budget manager, or your budget manager, but we did not establish a separate reserve fund as we
Not yet, but we're having that
talked about last year,
conversation.
'cause I thought we had done that already.
We didn't establish it as part of our preliminary budget, but again, our budget discussion's tomorrow, so we can talk about
And
how
I
to do
thought we
that.
had done it last
I
year.
have some ideas.
I thought we had two, but hopefully we'll fix that tomorrow.
Okay.
Now, you say you're going to fix that tomorrow. What do you mean by that, Commissioners?
We have our budget workshops with the Public Works tomorrow, Public Works Department, and at least the plan to move forward on the adoption of the budget would establish something.
So
If
you
it
would
was
put it in
concurred
the
on.
2017 budget.
So Commissioner, how I think it might work is in the restricted fund balance where it shows our restricted ending fund balance, we would just have two separate lines. One would be our restricted ending fund balance and one would be a restricted fund balance for future projects. So we would basically divide that money up in those two lines.
Well, it's a little difficult, I think, for the public to have much confidence if we're just going to have a fund that we will determine later how it will be spent. I mean, the idea of a construction budget is to
Yeah.
is to plan for the future, but
And our
hold-
restrictions, Commissioner, are that we can't work on capital construction projects that are not on the annual or 6 years. So
Right.
if in 2017 we decided to pursue a capital construction project that was not on our annual, we would have to come back and revise the annual. We can have more projects on there than we intend to work on, but we can't work on something that wasn't identified.
Right.
So we'd have to have another hearing like this one.
Okay, so an item on this annual budget is a $200,000 Belfair Connector study for an alternate route. Can you explain that to me? What's going to happen with $200,000?
Sure. So we would research what routes have been looked at in the past. We would look at what's available to us, look at the topography. We would definitely need to do some outreach with the public to get to know what folks in the area think about what would work well for Belfair. We would need to do some research and work with DOT. And because we're stretched sort of thin in the Public Works Department, we would more than likely hire a consultant to help us with that. So I don't know that that effort will cost entirely $200,000, but that's what we plan to budget at this point.
Okay, so in previous briefings, there was identified $1,730,000 for a connector to Romance Hill Road. Am I remembering that correctly?
In
A
our
previous
preliminary,
discussion,
in the 6 year, maybe.
in the 6 year.
Is it in here? Is that-
No, that's come out.
That's
since-
come out.
Yeah, when we last talked, commissioners wanted us to include one item for planning connections, whether it were Romance Hill, whether it were some other connection. So looking at connections, one item, and you guys asked us not to put in any money for right-of-way acquisition or construction, to just look at the planning phase at this point and to work
Okay,
on some
all right.
preliminary
Well,
engineering.
I'm glad that's fixed, because I think the Romance Hill Road's a goat trail. I mean, it's 12% grade. That would be steep and unsuitable for traffic, and It's very difficult. So I'm glad that that's clarified. But I just make the one last comment about the Belfair connector. This is a road that, you know, a bypass is what it is, a bypass. So you have to think of Squim and North Bend, Yelm, all those are bypasses. And while many of those have, Squim, for example, has other routes off the bypass into town, they aren't challenged with the geography that we have. And we have several hundred feet of elevation change from where the bypass will be down to the floor of Hood Canal, the shore of Hood Canal. So that's going to be a challenge, and we're also challenged by the railroad tracks. The U.S. Navy Railroad, because the bypass will be east in its entirety, east of the railroad. So to cross that is going to be very, very expensive. So I won't be here when it's done, when it's debated again, but I think those are points that we need to consider, that this is county money and it might be spent somewhere else much better. So thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, thank you. I will open the floor for testimony. Is there anybody in the audience? Oh, I apologize. Yes, there's another question.
I have a question, Melissa, about the connector on the one-year plan. I'm a member of the public, and I try to stay pretty informed. The public doesn't know exactly where the bypass is going to be located yet, or has it been released?
No, we don't know either.
How can we even plan for a connector if we don't know where the road's going to be at? I've been to to kind of follow up on what Commissioner Sheldon said, it's awful busy between where the sewer treatment plant is and the railroad. There's not enough room for a connector. That's just my opinion. But we need to know where the bypass is going to be before we can really do any planning. So I just wanted to find out if anybody really knew for certain where it was at.
No, I don't know for certain right now. I think, yeah, we can speculate on a lot of stuff. We can work with DOT and try to get the most current, up-to-date information. But really, making that connection is sort of a T. And whether this road moves a bit this way or this way, I think we can start to work on identifying how it connects to the Belfair area. So yeah.
Madam Chair, if I might add something here. I worked very hard to get this appropriation in 2005, and then now the appropriation that will actually build a bypass for $76 million. And the legislature, in their document, called out for a bypass from Highway 302, intersection of Highway 3 and 302. That's the, what's the road that goes down the hill? Victor. The interchange there. I think it's 2.4 miles or 2.6 to Lake Flora Road, the intersection of Lake Flora Road and Highway 3. Now that's the terminus of the two ending points of the bypass, beginning and ending points, but it will have to be to the west of or east of Highway 3 of the railroad tracks, because there's no appropriation for railroad crossing. So we know it's going to be 90% through the Overton property.
Any other questions?
Did I understand you say, I'm just checking, that it is in the planning budget for next year to put in sidewalks from the Four Corners to at least the senior center?
That's correct.
To the tune of $185,000.
Of which we're actually hoping to get from
Grant.
instead.
Money,
But if from another organization granted, but if not, it's in the budget.
That would be extremely helpful.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll open the floor for public testimony. Anybody like to testify? State your name. You know the drill.
Know the drill. Jeff Carey, Vice Chair of the TIPCAP Committee. And again, I want to say that this group of members compared to 15 years ago is night and day. Much better to, even when we disagree, we are able to work through issues a lot cleaner than we did when I recall happening 18 years ago with TIPCAP. Obviously, the Transportation Committee approved, voted on, the list that's before you. There was a lot of discussions. We're trying to address the issues of, your UGAs. That's another factor of the connector issue is that you're within a UGA. And, in the end, there's all kinds of conflicts, all kinds of things. The biggest thing that as a committee we're trying to do is get it all on the table, and if it ends up there is no connector, which I don't know that that's going to be it either, then there's no connector, midpoint connector. But that's not where the committee is going at this moment. They feel that there's going to be one. Where it is, whether it's Rance Hill or any of the other points that the state had originally laid out here about 10 years ago, who knows? All we're saying is we have to address the concurrency issues and all those kind of things of working within a UGA, and that's how that kind of got on the list. We're also trying to address all the things like of Allen and its right-of-way opportunities, that lasted the last 125 years or better. And then like Trails End, it was brought up. I mean, I don't know current counts, but a while back, in the state studies, there was basically about 6,100, 6,900 vehicles that went down 106, 2,900 continued on 106, and the rest went up the hill. And so you got 4,000 plus going up the hill. So, and again, TIPCAP's not just looking at this in the sense of just transportation, push it ahead. They're also looking at things like, emergency services. In other words, when that road goes and you can't get up or down it, medic, first aid, that kind of thing, getting around from point to point, they're trying to address those kind of points. Because a lot of Trails End Lake is our District 2, and so all of a sudden they get, blocked and have to go the long way around. So the committee's addressing a number of things, and again, we want to thank the Commission also making available. One thing that's making that committee work better is that the Commission has made available staff that have stuck with us, in the form of Loretta, Melissa, and Carrie, to work each meeting, and along periodically Dave Smith in some of the meetings. And so that facilitates people's we all have opinions about these roads and what have you, moving forward, but it gives us some understanding why certain things happen or don't happen, and all the different factors. We are focusing now a little bit more, since we've approved this, focusing on getting the bylaws of the subcommittee, nailed down, so that after us, it'll be easier for the Commission when they appoint, new members to it, that there's a kind of a roadmap of how the committee works, and make it easier for Commission to manage, but also make it easier for those coming on board. We want to also, the committee keeps pushing, and we want to keep stating that minimize the diversions, try to keep the road monies in the road, because you got, we're talking about one culvert, and we don't disagree whether it should or another route, like the one that you were addressing here earlier, the one culvert where they put it off for a while or what have you. There's, I think it's 3,300 or 3,400 culverts in the county roads right-of-way system. You do the math, you extend it out. You're going to have to be either fixing, replacing, or doing something every year. You got 65 bridges. None of them are going to last 200 years. So that means statistically, doesn't mean it works this way, every 3 years you got to address the bridge. You got 620 miles of road. These are all things the committee's also wired to supporting, that we have to we either have to fund it or we have to cut it back. And nobody's willing to cut it back, and so, okay, now we're gonna have to figure out how to fund it. So, and I guess last but not least, we do have 1 or 2 vacancies on that committee, and we'd like, I can't remember which districts are out of or what have you, but we would like the commission to, keep seeking out volunteers for serving on that committee.
May I ask you a question?
No. No questions. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Commissioner Nedler and I are of the understanding that last year's budget we had asked to establish for want of a better term, a Roads for Economic Development Reserve Fund.
Right.
Basically, economic development requires publicly funded infrastructure,
Right.
which is then followed up by private investment, in my personal opinion, and through watching what happens in other communities that grow. Have you, in your tip cap, discussed reserving monies for new roads?
Yes.
Good. And had you made a recommendation to do that?
Not yet, because, for example, one segment was to discuss the issue of the Allen right-of-ways. Because there's such a convoluted process to that whole package there. The one, I presented it to the committee, we discussed it, because that was one of the 2 UGAs I'm supposed to represent and bring forth. We started discussing, and one thing that came out is, okay, let's start economically figuring out, okay, if the county does this and these roads become this, what is the financial impact, both taxes and what happens, or what can happen if it's not, or what can't happen if it is, the way it is currently, or what are the complications, such as the right-of-ways of Allen. And we have not pulled that data together yet. I had emails from Loretta to start pulling things like what infrastructure's in the ground in these right-of-ways, so to begin the process. But that's going to be, there's on the north side of Lakeland Drive, I think there's about 265 developable lots. On the south side, it depends how you use the zoning, but you could have as many as 400 to 500 because of the density. It's up to 20 dwellings per acre type. So we're, that's going to be part of trying to figure out whether, and then also whether that's feasible within Allen also. In other words, that may never happen that way. It may be more like only 1 in 10. But to give the options and start hammering that out. So it's probably, in that case, dealing like with Allen, it'll probably be on my shoulders to pull that together and then present it. And then obviously the Public Works are going to have to work it and figure out these things. And, there's cost. I mean, there's the right-of-way issues, how we address that and all those kind of things. So, but that's to start the process. And so, yes, the long and the short is, yes, we've addressed the fact of new roads, at least starting in UJs. And I believe we've started to address the fact that Trails End is not forever.
Good point. Good point.
It's longer term. That doesn't mean we have a solution. It just means, you got a road that's not going to be forever there. And at least as a main, it may in some form, but not as a main connection point.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else like to testify? Hearing none, I'll close testimony and open it for commissioner deliberations. Is there any discussion? Then I will start. I am in favor of removing the Homer Adams Road from the annual construction program. And I concur with the rest of the annual construction program with that change.
And your reason behind that would be to move the money where?
Would like to move the money to a reserve fund for future road construction. I believe that is something that can be taken up in the budget process as opposed to the adoption of the annual construction program. I think that's a more appropriate place for it. And so basically it's removing from next year one construction project. I've heard for probably about 4 or 5, maybe 3 meetings now, your belief that a Belfair connector road is not appropriate or not needed or I don't want to characterize how you believe it, but that you're not in favor of at some level a Belfair connector road. I think that we have, by virtue of the tip cap recommending that there be an analysis done, I believe at the very least we have a citizen committee that would recommend it, and I think that needs to be considered. Your role in the state legislature is a powerful one, and I would hope that it wouldn't be used to thwart any opportunities. I have spoken to Department of Transportation officials about a connector road, given what you had shared with me months ago, that DOT would not support a connector road. I went and asked them, and they said that's not true. We fully expect the county to want to have a connector road. I am not willing to say where it should or should not be. I would not pretend to be a transportation engineer. I think that's best left to the professionals of where it would go, and I think that expenditure would help that. The idea that you wouldn't have an identified road in a savings plan of any kind for roads, I think is also a misnomer. I think that might be your opinion. I believe that when you know you have road construction coming ahead of you, whether you've identified specifically what road you're saving for, I don't think is as important that you are saving money and acknowledging there will be large expenditures going out in the future, and let's start now to put that money away, because you're eventually going to have to come to terms. You're going to have to bring that money up, and so when you're ready for it, you can jump on the shovel-ready type opportunities of grants, etc. But if you're starting when you start to try to find the money, you put yourself back 5-6 years from actual road construction. This gives us the flexibility on grant funding, on matching, on leveraging monies for other funding sources. And so I don't think it's absolutely essential that we identify in a separate reserve fund what roads will be built. I think we have enough analysis work that will lead us down the line to put a name on that.
Well, I appreciate your comments, but I think there's some things I'd like to clarify. The briefing that I attended, there was identified $1 million, I think it was $730,000 for a connector, and it was identified the Romance Hill connector.
And this was a briefing, I need to clarify, where was?
Here, I wrote it down about a month ago when we first looked at at this subject of the 6-year road plan and the annual plan. Now, I appreciate that it's been changed very much, and I will support $200,000 for a consultant's review. Now, when the bypass was approved by the legislature, the environmental impact study did account for one connector road. So, taking a look at it, if it's a generic look, I'm fine with that. I'm not fine with taking our money and deciding somehow without any public input or looking at the 12% grade or going over the railroad tracks and just saying we're going to use it for Romance Hill to connect to the Belfair bypass, because the road is like I said, it's a goat track. It's 12%. I don't know that you can run a school bus up there in the winter. So let alone have traffic coming down it. So that's what I'm concerned about. I will support that part of the budget, the 200,000, if it's a generic look at is it feasible for a connector, primarily, I think, for emergency services. I don't think you're going to go down a bypass and say, boy, I sure need a Subway sandwich, I better get off here in the middle. I think you make that decision before you get on the bypass. So, but I do disagree with taking money from a culvert, Homer Adams culvert, which is certainly needed. It may fail. It's $450,000, and putting it into a category of undocumented, or just a fund that we can decide later how to use it in the 2017 budget. That I think is not serving the public well. I think they need to know in a plan, in an annual construction program, where we're going to go. Now, you can change it. You'll be here, Commissioner Jeffries. I don't know if Commissioner Netherland will be here. I know I won't, but you may have 2 new commissioners in January. So you'll have at least one. So that's my thoughts about it.
Thank you. Commissioner?
I think it's prudent to put away money for future development, especially for future economic development roads. It makes no sense not to put money away for such things. And you wouldn't identify where it is. You need to be able to take advantage of whatever opportunities come up before you. As far as Romance Hill or not, this is to look at all the different projects. And it doesn't matter which one, as long as, I believe we do get it connected to it. And I want to remind, although we keep talking about that particular road, there is a letter on file for us from the sheriff and from the fire chief in the area requesting that road be put through. I just wanted to let that be known out there on that. I'm in favor of removing the Homer Adams one, especially because our staff thinking so much in front has already established that if something was to happen in the meantime, they have another route that they could move people around, just in case. But of course, we're hoping that there's nothing that's going to happen. This is just the next one on the list. So I'm expecting that we'd be looking at that project next year. With that being said, I'd be willing to make a motion and put it forward with the redaction of the Homer Adams Road.
Is there a second? I will second that motion. It's been moved and second to adopt the 2017 annual construction program with the redaction, of the Homer Adams Culvert Road, or culvert replacement in the 2017 annual construction program. Any further discussion?
I would, thanks, Madam Chair. I would support Commissioner Netherland's statement that it's prudent to put away money for the future. I just hope that we would use that tenet and follow that principle when we're borrowing money from another fund for handheld radios for 3 years. So it's very difficult to be consistent in this world, and I'm going to vote no because I think I'm trying to be consistent with my points that I've made. Thank you.
Okay, my last comment is I want to thank the TIPCAP for considering urban roads. Back in 2004 and 2005, I and our planning director urged the TIPCAP to put into their matrix and their consideration of how will transportation support our urban growth. And it's been a long time coming, and so just to see these study options in this annual program shows to me that we've moved forward, and we're looking at concurrency with our growth management, and I appreciate that. So I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
No.
Motion carried.
Madam Chair, before you go on to the next, I would like to, with everybody's permission, ask that our staff look to bring forward next week a request and have published the openings for the TIPCAP that are still remaining.
Yes,
Put out for
please.
a new request.
Please, thank you. It takes us to our 2017-2022 six-year transportation improvement program. Melissa McFadden.
Melissa McFadden, Mason County Public Works. RCW 3681121 requires that each county adopt a comprehensive transportation program for the ensuing 6 calendar years. The plan shall include proposed road and bridge construction work, including newer enhanced bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Once it's adopted, the plan must be sent to the County Road Administration Board and to the Secretary of Transportation. The program may be revised at any time, but revisions must be taken to a public hearing similar to this one. Once again, we prepared our 6-year in a form that's consistent with what is put out by the DOT as part of the statewide transportation improvement program. You'll see many other counties using a similar format. This year, we worked very closely with our Transportation Improvement Program Citizen Advisory Panel, or TIPCAP, who's appointed by the board. The mission of TIPCAP is to represent citizen transportation interests throughout Mason County during development of the 6-year TIP. So I believe with Jeff Carey here, he'll probably want to testify and hopefully make a recommendation to the board to approve the plan. The group has really dedicated a huge amount of effort to engaging the community and gathering all available information as they prepared recommendations. And I also want to give a kudos to their staff member, Loretta Swanson, from Public Works, who's worked diligently to provide them with everything that they've requested as timely as possible. So I also would like to note that on August 18th at a briefing, we talked with the board about TIPCAP's recommendations, and what we heard was that our Board of County Commissioners and our Transportation Improvement Program Citizen Advisory Panel are largely in line with their priorities. There were a couple things that commissioners wanted added to the prioritization, but generally TIPCAP and the board were in line with their recommendations and priorities. So in addition to our 6-year TIP, we've prepared an accompanying 6-year revenue expenditure analysis, so that's also required by statute, and I believe that's part of your package. The analysis does show that without identifying new revenue sources, that our operation will become unsustainable in 2020. We show this typically about the 3rd or 4th year out every year. I have no doubt that we'll rise to the challenge and continue to provide our high-quality service to our residents, identifying additional revenue sources as needed. So with that,
I have no doubt either.
I'll take any questions.
So if we were to move the Homer Adams Road culvert replacement to a different year, is that something that,
Yeah, it would be reflected on the 6-year TIP. So we could identify an alternate year to move it to. It would just show up as an expenditure in that year because there's no outside revenue source. It's
I'm
all
looking
county
at
money.
how would I change the numbers on the final, and could we do that up
And we'd
here?
also do a revision to the revenue expenditure analysis.
Right.
Well, I will
But
pull
do you need
out
to have
my
that in the
6-year
6-year
TIP.
plan? Right
Well,
now.
the other thing that you could do, commissioners, would be to remove it, strike it from the 6-year TIP, and then we can put it back in at a future hearing. So if we're going through this process next year, we can put it back in for 2018.
If we were to do that though, and there was an event, would we still be able to do it, even though it's not in the plan?
Oh, if there were a failure event? Yeah, we have special provisions for emergency failures, so
I'm okay with that.
that would be okay.
As long as it would not preclude us from doing it if something happened.
Definitely.
You have some money for unplanned culvert repairs. I think it's $130,000, so.
That's correct.
And this is a $450,000 job. Maybe you could explain for the public, where is the Homer Adams culvert?
Yeah. So
And
Homer
what-
Adams Road.
Yeah, what road is it on and where is it located?
So Shelton Matlock Road, just south of Matlock. If you take Deckerville Road to the west, almost to the Grace Harbor County line, Homer Adams Road goes to the south off of Deckerville Road. And there are about 25 homes that are served by Homer Adams Road. And what commissioners were talking about earlier, we've identified a gated, closed-off Green Diamond Road that we would use for access during construction. And we could actually, hopefully, and I haven't approached Green Diamond yet, so don't quote me, but have the conversation with them about opening that in an emergency situation. And they've always been great and worked with us when that was needed. So.
And that's a forest land road.
It's a gravel road, correct.
It's a gravel haul road for trucks. So,
I wouldn't want to keep it that way forever, but I think for a period of time.
And
for
we have a
those-
similar situation with the 800 road in the Skokomish Valley where Green Diamond makes available their road to get folks out of in an emergency. Not an ideal road, no. In fact, it's even least ideal because it has a very high grade or very, very steep grade.
And probably in the event of an emergency, Commissioner, I know that you're looking at the disparate dollar amounts. So we've got 130,000 set aside for an emergency. We would probably have to look at our whole program and shuffling things around and what funds were available to us, or look at the potential of lowering our fund balance a bit in order to make the repair. So,
or we could create a fund for future roads. Is I guess the alternative, what we're talking about here. Or we could do what we need to do, in my opinion.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
I have a question about priority number 9, the Trails Road alternate route. That would be a new construction.
correct.
And that to alleviate what's going on with the existing Trails Roads. Is any high elevation look at where that might be?
We would definitely have to look at topography. We don't have any funding budgeted currently to look at that in this calendar year. So in 2017 is when we would start looking at that. And probably what we would start with is requesting rights of entry from owners so that we could start to do some survey work and then go from there.
Any other questions? Thank you, Melissa. So let's open this up for public testimony. Anybody in the public that would like to testify?
Jeff Carey, Vice Chair of the TIPCAP Committee. Again, the committee, again, through deliberations, did come to the support of that and did consider what the Public Works brought to us that they had in their briefings as far as additional projects and what have you. One other point I want to make is that the Transportation Improvement Committee is planning to have this next year like this year we had one public meeting to get the public engaged with TIPCAP in Belfair. This next year we're going to have in 2 different districts, and then the following year in 3 different districts. In other words, we're trying to get not just the input from the people that represent the different groups, but also try to have public open houses, so to speak, to get people's input on different projects and different things and what's affecting them, and add that public other piece to TIPCAP and make it feel like the people, there's a connection between public, TIPCAP, and the commission. So.
Thank you for that.
So it's a long process. It's a tedious process, but it's working, and with the different skill sets of the different members that are on there currently, from Phil Wolf to Jack Johnson and others, it's making it, I won't say a breeze, but it's not a warring process. At least we can hammer out things, and everybody's being fairly upfront. I mean, when I say fair, everybody's being upfront if there are conflicts of interest, if people have property, like myself and Alan, or like Jack and Belfair, or whoever, so that everybody, it's on the table what the potential conflict is. And so in other words, we're trying to keep it, it's always, you always forget something, but you're always trying to keep it as much above board and trying to get the public into it. So anyway.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else like to testify? Ken.
Ken Van Busker, Davis Farm Road in Belfair. I attended the TIPCAP meeting, and I appreciate what Jeff was saying. They listened. One of the things that I had commented on was about the Trails Road alternate connector, and I think there's an opportunity to utilize Razor Road and bring it right to Highway 3 and eliminate trails altogether, and I've been an advocate of that even when I served on the TIP CAP committee. But what I wanted to say about this 6-year plan is I too think that concurrency is very important. And it's my opinion that this 6-year improvement program isn't consistent with the county's comprehensive plan, nor is it consistent with the Belfair sub-area plan. And case in point is whether or not the Old Belfair Highway stays in the urban growth area or not, it needs to be identified in the 6-year plan.
For what? I'm
For,
sorry.
for improvement.
For improvement.
There's
Thank you.
two salmon-bearing streams with blocking culverts that go underneath the Old Belfair Highway that were never identified originally, and they're still there. Salmon can't get through them. So I think the Old Belfair Highway needs to be put on the 6-year plan at some point. If you're continuing with the other infrastructure projects, all of it needs to be concurrent. I'd like to see specifically priority item number 7, the connector dropped until the bypass is actually built. And I'd like to see item 9, the trails road project prioritized higher. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else like to testify? I will close public testimony and open it for commissioner deliberation. Commissioners. Discussion? Motions?
I'll mention a couple things if we could. I tried to write some of them down, but I'll try. So if I hear right, understand this correctly, we're going to move $450,000 from the 6-year road plan for the Homer Adams culvert, which is we've already done some engineering on that, and move it to a category for future roads for economic development. And we haven't identified those roads. And economic development is a very broad subject. Another item that Melissa mentioned, but we didn't discuss, was this 6-year plan will be reported to the Secretary of Transportation as fiscally unsustainable after only 4 years. So, in 4 years, we don't have any money to complete this plan. That's scary. I started as a commissioner in 2005, and we had a terrific, I think it was 2005, where we had a terrible winter. We lost bridges in Hoodsport over Finch Creek. We lost bridge in Hunter Creek Bridge. That was gone, or damaged. In Tahuya, we lost a bridge, and I think we had a couple more damaged. So it took us almost, the Hunter Creek Bridge was the last one that we repaired in that big storm, and we just cut the ribbon on that basically this year. So when you have some kind of a big event like that, it all changes. So it's a 6-year plan. I know it's a plan, but I wish it was more specific, and I've expressed those disappointments to you. Thank you.
Commissioner.
I just want to clarify the striking of the Homer Adams Road. We have briefings and work groups, work study sessions that we do, and I want to, I'm sorry you were not able to stay and listen, but that recommendation came from staff. We were looking at taking out an overlay project, but staff had different recommendations on how to get where you needed to go. It wasn't just us being willy-nilly here. There was actually briefings on it. There was long discussions on it. And, if you had been here, you would have been able to hear some of those discussions, so we didn't have to do it each time here.
That's part of the public process.
Okay.
Not making decisions in briefings. but making decisions here. And I know it's a long process, it's 11:15. I'm willing to stay and debate these issues, but I think the public needs to be informed about them. And I've been to the briefings on this issue.
Okay, but on this one, you were not there to hear the reasonings behind it. I will be in favor of moving forward with the striking of the Homer Adams Road project. And if you like, I'm ready to make a... Madam Chair, I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve and execute the resolution adopting the 2017 through 2022 six-year transportation improvement program, striking the Homer Adams Road from the project list.
I'll second that motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve and execute the resolution adopting the 2017 to 2022 six-year transportation and improvement program, striking the Homer Adams Road culvert replacement project. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call.
Well, I'll just make one more comment.
Please.
If I might. Commissioner Netherland, it is a culvert replacement project, not a road. And by striking the $450,000, you're not saying what you're going to use the money for. And I can understand if you move projects, but to put it into a fund for future roads for economic development without identifying where it's going to go, I think is basically a slush fund. It's basically a fund that you will work together with the two people that will vote for this. You'll work this out someplace behind the scenes how this money will be spent. So I object to that, and I'm going to vote no.
I object to your characterization of how these discussions happened. Any road construction would show up in an annual and a six-year program. There will be public discussion around it. What will happen is that we will have the money to pay for whatever road that money would go towards. Your oversimplification of this process is insulting to me. And I believe that, our disagreement has been well stated, and I can appreciate your position, and I will restate my position that it does not need to have an identification at this point. We have plenty of process, both with the tip cap and public hearings, for that to happen. I do object to the characterization of it being a slush fund. Any reserve, especially if you have a contemplation and study of at least three different major projects, a right-of-way potential, you have your Allen area right-of-way, we've got the Simmons Road, which isn't fully funded. We've got plenty of study here that will eventually lead to a proposal for construction. To identify it now is probably not as important as it is to be ready financially to construct the road. And we could go back and forth on this and in disagreement, but I don't think we're going to change each other's mind, but I'd be happy to hear any follow-up you may have on that.
Well, I guess I'll stay again. I mean, you're taking these actions, but your staff is saying that this report, this six-year plan, which has to be submitted to the Secretary of Transportation for the state of Washington, is fiscally unattainable after only 4 years.
That is a different argument, so perhaps you have a recommendation regarding how to make that be in the black for all 6 years.
What you have to do is live within your means.
Then how would you, what projects would you take off of this?
I could go through it for you if you have the time, but I don't think it's going to change your vote.
Well, I think that if you have an issue with that, then you would have done that prior to this meeting.
There seems like the changes that are proposed came at the meeting, so.
It seems to me that all of a sudden you have a concern about the out years, and you're bringing it up now, but haven't thought through what you would do, and you use the term of fiscally unsustainable. You use that very, very loosely throughout, but you don't have recommendations about what to do about it. And that makes it very difficult to lead with you, sir. I just wanted to share
Thank
that with you.
I thank you for your criticism. I take that as under advisement.
Madam Chair, I would like to point out that we're working on a 6-year plan, and this is not the place to allocate funds. The fund allocation will occur in a budget hearing and our budget workshops. As for the future on the 6-year plan, you're going to run into that problem no matter what you do, because there are no other grants and stuff allocated that many years out. But they ask us to put together a 6-year plan that includes our wish list, and we can't do the projects, of course, unless they're on the wish list. But you know that. You've been here a long time. So the idea that there's no money or not enough money to continue on after 4 years should be no surprise at all to you. And again, we have those meetings and those briefings. They are open to the public. That's part of the regular business of being a county commissioner. We choose to attend those, and so we have those discussions openly and with the public here. This is usually our business meeting, and we shouldn't be using it as much for political fodder as much as getting the business done. I myself would like to move forward with this as recommended by the TIPCAP, and as discussed at our briefings yesterday with the removing of Homer Adams Culvert from the project list. That's all it does. It just takes it off the list. It doesn't move funding, it doesn't move money, that will not be on the 6-year plan.
So I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
No.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your comments, commissioners, but I'll make one last point on this. Our briefings they are open to the public, but the public does not have a chance to participate. Briefing sessions have been closed to public testimony and questions many times.
You're correct. Many times it has, but many times it has also been open.
Very few does the public have an opportunity to make statements at briefings.
So we will move to item number 10. This is the board reports and calendars. This is an opportunity to share where we've been, meetings that we have attended together, and meetings that we will attend in the future together. I will start. Following last week's commission meeting, we had a Memorial Hall Committee meeting. We had budget workshops, had a law library meeting, a Community Action Council board. I spent Thursday the 29th setting up for Oyster Fest. I went to a funeral for Mr. Rich Geiger on Friday. I worked Oyster Fest on Saturday and Sunday. I just wanted to share, it was a privilege to be able to have done that, and one of the jobs I had throughout the weekend was to check IDs for, to make sure that people that were buying alcohol were of age. And that gave me the opportunity to do some off-the-cuff market research, and it is absolutely true that Oyster Fest is bringing people in from all over the West Coast. I saw a lot of attendees from the California, Oregon, and Idaho area, and I just salute Oyster Fest on their 35th year. It was a phenomenal year. We had commissioner briefings yesterday. Following today's briefing or commission meeting, we'll have budget workshops. We'll have budget workshops Wednesday. I have a Mason Transit Authority budget workshop. I will not be able to attend the first half of it. I have a meeting with the City of Shelton Commissioner Kathy McDowell, hopefully our Sheriff Chief Moody, the Administrator for the City, Ryan Wheaton, Mark Friedman, the Director of the Behavioral Health Organization, regarding citing a triage facility. I have a meeting of the Downtown Visioning Association on 6th, in which we will hear what the scope of work will be for a downtown Railroad Avenue corridor study. Meeting with the Hood Canal Coordinating Council Director. Meeting with Barry Hansen with Catholic Community Services. Rosa McLeod from the, Senator Cantwell's office. And then Friday the 7th, We have a 3-hour budget workshop of the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization here in Mason County in these chambers, starting at 1:30. People are invited to attend. We're back for commission briefings on Monday. And that would be it until our commission meeting.
Commissioner, I'll go through mine very briefly. I don't think there was any meetings outside of our scheduled meeting that we were both attending, any of our commissioners that were attending. I had an opportunity, was in California last week with Energy Northwest and did a lot of work with our bond council down there. Had some interesting observations about the world outside of the Northwest. But when I got back on Thursday, the 29th, I had a chance to meet with Sean McGrady, who's the executive director for the Quixote Village in Thurston County at the Montman Industrial Park. And they have a very successful model. It's been visited by one of our U.S. senators and several of our congressional members. Congressman Kilmer and Congressman Denny Heck also have visited the Quixote Village. So it is tiny houses surrounding a communal center for food service and meetings in the center, and it has been a very, well, let's just call it advocacy and assistance for homeless. I think people are starting to realize that one of the cures for homelessness is low-income housing. And Sean McGrady is a Mason County resident. Family's been here a long, long time. He is an excellent fundraiser. He ran the fundraising for Greenpeace for the entire West Coast out of Los Angeles. And I would urge the other commissioners to have a chance to visit the village and take a tour. I did get him in touch with Tom Davis because one of the projects they'd like to look at is a similar Quixote Village of tiny houses and surrounding a communal building for veterans. And I think this would just be an excellent idea if we could find some property in Mason County to do that the county owns. So I passed that on to the commission yesterday and wanted to let the public know that there's a possibility there. If we could find a piece of property that the county owns, it would be more than down the road for a good start on and a possibility for that here in Mason County. And I think there's a tour tomorrow at the city of Tacoma. Unless something changes, I don't think I'll be able to make it. That starts at 10 o'clock at the hatchery at the Lower Lake.
I don't believe you were here when we had that discussion on the scheduling, but we opted not to move our scheduled budgeting workshop for tomorrow, and took up the offer of Tacoma Power to have a separate tour.
Oh, okay. All right. And then that'll close me out then. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, let's see, I ran out of this meeting the last time and drove out there to Union for the Huguenot Improvement Club's debate. We attended our budget workshops, Alliance of the Healthy South Sound meetings, had that meeting with the group trying to create a Suboxone clinic, and we're this close. The doctors and everything are there, the service providers are there, everybody's being put together. I'll be meeting with them again here shortly, but we're this close to actually making something happen, which is using inpatient for the best chance of success, using inpatient with behavioral health. The group we have down the road here. Resources. They have some inpatients, using them to bring it out from that point on. It's going to really increase.
Thank you for your work on that.
My pleasure. It's going to really increase the possibilities of success. North Mason Chamber of Commerce debate. For my own self, I attended Arsenio Hall. He's hilarious. A lot funnier than I thought he was going to be. I never was a fan on TV. We had our briefings. Had left board meeting this morning, Port Allen meeting last night. Been meeting with different people from the Huguenot Coordinating Council for employee review of our director. You mentioned budget workshop, so for coming up, we have budget workshops, but you mentioned that you're not going to be able to be there for one of them, for the beginning part?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you said that you weren't going to be able to attend part of it, you had to meet with the city.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Mason Transit Authority budget
Oh,
workshop.
okay, Mason Transit Authority budget workshop. Didn't catch the two, okay. So budget workshop, we have two of them actually scheduled this next week. Mason Transit Authority budget workshop, I will be there for that. Policy team with MTA workshop. Allen Community Association is having a meeting. Women Ours are having a meeting. Board of Health budget, county, that ended up on my phone. I don't know where that came from, because I didn't put that in. Do you have any of that? Because I thought that was strange. I'll look into that
What
one.
date?
I have it for Friday, 1:30 to 3:30.
Oh, that is the Behavioral Health Organization budget workshop.
Oh, BHO, not BOH, okay. And you asked me to attend that? Is that what that was?
I've invited you to attend.
Okay. Behavioral, so we will both be there at that, I have that in my phone. Where's that gonna be, the location?
Here, in these
Right here?
chambers.
Okay, thank you. And then, I'll be attending a fundraiser for the Sergeant Oyster House restoration, which will be at what time and where?
6 begins at 6, social hour at 5, Saturday night at the Allen Courthouse.
And are there tickets still available?
There are still about 15 tickets available.
So if one of the commissioners would like to attend it at the same time, please let it be known so we can do that. And that brings us back to our briefings, and we start all over again.
We have item number 11, which is department directors and elected officials. I see no elected officials in the room. I see our county road engineer is pretty close to a department director. Is there anything you'd like to address the community with? Yeah, that would be it then.
Madam Chair,
This is it.
I move for adjournment.
I'll second the motion to adjourn.